What's going on, everybody? It's X. We got Corey in the house. No pun intended. This is 2025. Today, we're going to be talking about the story of Joseph. We're going to talk about some key takeaways that we take away from this biblical story. I don't know if Corey's heard of this story or not, so I'd love to hear his takeaways from it. For myself, I've heard this story just growing up, so it's a great story. We're going to just take some time, and we'll give credit to where credit is due. Shout out to Doctrine Dive. They put this out about a year ago. It looks a bit like AI in it and everything like that, but just off the rip, Corey, any idea about Joseph? You got any ideas about that?
Very, very vague, so I'm ready to get into detail.
All right, word. I know you being a theater kid, you probably heard of the Joseph in the Technicolor or whatever. That was a play or something, right? You know anything about that?
I don't know what you're talking about, but
yeah. I went over your head on that one. All right. Well, all right, we're going to get this started. We'll get some insight throughout. Corey, if you want to pause at any point, just let me know. But we'll go on throughout this. So grateful to have you guys around for 2025. Please, if you love any of our content, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. We greatly appreciate it. Here we go. Going into the story of Joseph. Corey, just give me a thumbs up if you need anything. All right.
In the ancient land of Canaan, there lived a man named Jacob, who was also known as Israel. He had 12 sons, and among them was Joseph, his favorite. Joseph's brothers, jealous of their father's favoritism, harbored resentment towards him. The names of Joseph's brothers were Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, and Benjamin. One night, Joseph had a series of vivid dreams that seemed to hold special meaning. In the first dream, he and his brothers were binding sheaves of wheat in the field when his sheaf stood upright, and his brothers' sheaves bowed down to it. In the second dream, the sun, moon, and 11 stars bowed down to him. The symbolism of these dreams was not lost on Joseph, but it only fueled the animosity his brothers felt towards him. One day, Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers, who were tending the flocks in Shechem. Upon seeing him from a distance, the brothers plotted against Joseph, fueled by their resentment and the dreams he had shared with them. They decided to strip him of his coat of many colors, a symbol of their father's love, and throw him into a pit. As they were contemplating what to do with Joseph, a caravan of traders passed by, heading to Egypt. Seeing an opportunity to rid themselves of Joseph, the brothers decided to sell him as a slave to the traders. Joseph's coat was dipped in goat's blood, and they presented it to Jacob, leading him to believe that Joseph had been killed by a wild animal. In Egypt, Joseph was sold to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. Despite the challenges he faced as a slave, Joseph proved to be diligent and trustworthy, rising to a position of authority in Potiphar's house. However, Joseph's fortunes took a turn when Potiphar's wife falsely accused him of attempting to seduce her, leading to his imprisonment. Even in prison, Joseph's ability to interpret dreams became evident. One night, two fellow prisoners, the cupbearer and the baker, recounted their respective visions to Joseph, hoping for insight that might alleviate their distress. The chief cupbearer described a dream in which he saw a vine with 3 branches, and as it budded, blossomed, and produced ripe grapes, he squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup and presented it to him. Conversely, the chief baker recounted a less favorable dream involving 3 baskets of bread on his head, with birds devouring the baked goods within. Joseph, attuned to the divine inspiration that guided his interpretations, did not merely analyze the dreams, but delved into their profound meanings. He explained to the cupbearer that the 3 branches represented 3 days, within which he would be restored to his former position, once again serving Pharaoh his cup of wine. The news was undoubtedly a glimmer of hope for the cupbearer in his dire circumstances. However, the chief baker received a somber prediction. Joseph revealed that the 3 baskets symbolized 3 days as well, but in this case, the news was grim. The baker would be hanged, and birds would feast upon his flesh. The weight of this revelation hung heavily in the prison air, casting a shadow over the baker's already troubled countenance. Before the prophesied events unfolded, Joseph took the opportunity to make a heartfelt plea to the cupbearer. Recognizing that his own fate remained entwined with the whims of destiny, Joseph requested a small favor in return for his interpretation. He implored the cupbearer, "When all is well with you, remember me and show me kindness. Mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison." Years later, Pharaoh himself had troubling dreams that none of his wise men could interpret. It was then that the cupbearer remembered Joseph's ability to interpret dreams. Summoned from prison, Joseph stood before Pharaoh, his demeanor marked by a wisdom that surpassed his years. The ruler recounted his dreams: 7 fat cows devoured by 7 emaciated ones, and 7 plump ears of grain consumed by 7 withered ones. The perplexing visions weighed heavily on Pharaoh's mind, and he implored Joseph for clarity. With divine insight, Joseph unraveled the symbolism within Pharaoh's dreams. He revealed that the visions foretold 7 years of abundant harvests, during which Egypt would prosper and thrive, followed by 7 years of devastating famine that would ravage the land. This revelation struck a chord with Pharaoh, resonating as a revelation of impending doom and an opportunity to avert catastrophe. Impressed not only by the accuracy of Joseph's interpretation, but also by the strategic foresight embedded within it, Pharaoh recognized the young Hebrew's exceptional wisdom. In a moment of profound decision, Pharaoh elevated Joseph from the confines of his prison cell to the pinnacle of authority in Egypt. With a decree that echoed through the grand halls of the palace, Pharaoh appointed Joseph as the governor of Egypt, second only to the sovereign himself. As the newly appointed governor, Joseph undertook the monumental task of preparing the nation for the impending cycle of abundance and famine. His administration during the years of plenty enabled Egypt to store enough grain to survive the subsequent famine. When the famine reached Canaan, Jacob sent his sons, including Joseph's brothers, to Egypt to buy food. Joseph, aware of his brothers' presence, seized the opportunity to test the depths of their character and the sincerity of their remorse for the past. He subjected them to a series of trials, alternating between benevolence and severity, all while concealing his true identity. Through the trials, Joseph observed the transformation within his brothers, witnessing the genuine remorse and newfound compassion that had replaced the envy and betrayal of their youth. The moment of revelation became a poignant climax, as Joseph, unable to contain his emotions any longer, disclosed his true identity with tears streaming down his face. The revelation echoed through the palace, resonating with the weight of years of separation, adversity, and transformation. However, Joseph forgave them, acknowledging that their actions were part of a greater plan. He reunited with his family, bringing them to Egypt to live in prosperity during the remaining years of the famine. The story of Joseph is one of betrayal, forgiveness, and the realization of divine purpose, a journey from being a favored son to a slave, a prisoner, and ultimately a savior. Through the twists of fate and the guidance of providence, Joseph's life unfolded in a way that shaped the destiny of his family and the entire nation of Egypt.
All right, so that was a quick little 7-minute video. Shout out to Divine, whatever that channel. We'll put their information in the description below. But Corey, what were your thoughts based off of the video that we just watched?
I mean, my first one is like it's a lot of pretty traumatic events to go through, and I'm kind of like wondering, what's the how certain can you be like through all that time of like suffering and all that, still like look forward to the other side? That takes a lot of will.
Takes a lot of patience as well, right? So for me, what I've taken away from like Joseph, from the story of Joseph just in general, is that no matter where your path is currently, you don't know where God is going to lead you later on, right? And some of those instances like fallback, whatever you want to call it, losses or whatever, they in the whole grand scheme of thing, when you look at it from a bigger picture, um, it works out in his favor, right? Not necessarily your favor, but particularly in this conversation with Joseph, I think it definitely did work out in his favor in the long run. But I think that when you're like caught up in like a lot of stuff, like I bet you like, you know, I bet you Joseph really wanted that cupbearer to remember him like when he got out, when he got freed. And of course it took him like months for him to come back on that, like on that deal, on that promise. So, and we have so many like situations like that in general, like in our lives. So it's just interesting to see that, even back in the day, it's not like you're on your own, but you got God by your side. So I guess you're not, all the way on your own.
Hmm. Yeah, and just like while I'm listening to this, I'm like, how can I even compare myself to what he's going through? I've quit on the slightest inconveniences, and this is a great reminder to just keep the train moving, and just trust that there's light on the other side, whenever you're going through something. And again, like I said, I've quit on the smallest inconveniences, and it's just like, imagine what you stop from happening just by getting frustrated by something.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think also that's just part of being human, right? Like I don't think that that's necessarily like, you know, a singular thing that we all face it. So um and it's always great to see like, stories or even, humbling moments. I always appreciate humbling moments when they happen to me. We're like, oh damn, like, yeah, like I'm thinking, life's messed up because of yada yada yada. But you got people who, may have lost a loved one, may have, right, like lost their whole livelihood, right? Like there's so many things that could have happened that just haven't happened. So when you're in your rut, or when you're in your like the part where you're like, yo, this is ass, this sucks, like help me. Like in all honesty, that might just be training for it to for something on the better side, if that makes sense.
Hmm. And I feel like when you're most frustrated, that's when, I mean, this is this is what you hear all the time. But when you're most frustrated, you're being challenged with something that you need to learn, right? Um, I remember like situations where like you'll always talk about in Dallas, with your car and everything, like the car always breaking down. And that's like, and I have the same thing in Columbus where my car doesn't want to work or whatever. But that for me is just you know teaching me, like, no matter what happens, you got to keep it going. I still got to get to work. I gotta find a way to get to work. And what, am I gonna sulk? Am I gonna be so upset that, oh, this is broken and I gotta fix it? Life sucks. Yeah, yeah. No, I gotta figure out how I'm gonna fix it. I gotta find where I'm gonna take it, find what part I need, whatever the case is, and that goes for anything. Um, it's as simple as getting out of bed. Um, you can either decide to let the alarm clock run and stay in bed, or you can do whatever productive thing you can get yourself ready for the morning. Uh, and again, I was given an example of a little smaller example with the waking out of bed, and then a little bigger example of like your car crapping out. And it's like these are daily decisions that we're making just based on our circumstance. And why are we basing what our environment is on how we react to it, right? Um, I'm a very big guy on just when something happens, you have to react to it and you have to fix it. The more you sulk on it, the more you sit on it, that's just time wasted. Like, it happened, get over it. I mean, depending on the situation, like obviously everyone has to grieve and all that, but in the day to day stuff, it's like, oh well, we made this mistake. This thing happened that we couldn't control. keep it moving.
I think that's the best way to look at it. And I think just like situationally though, right? In these small moments, you're like, yo, what in the world? Like, if we go back to the story of Joseph, and I don't know if they really touched on it like tremendously, but like his brothers sold him to slavery. He then became a slave to a nobleman in Egypt, right? And then he could have been complacent and been a great slave for that guy, right? Like even when his wife tried to make a move, he could have just fell and done the wrong thing and right made a move on his wife and just she probably would have kept it a secret, nothing crazy would have happened. But the fact that he rejected his wife's move is what sent him into prison, right? And sometimes, right, and this is what a lot of people got an issue with God is, and sometimes you do the right thing and then the wrong things happen in consequence, right? And if we look at it from the story, right, like in the grand scheme of things, like yeah, he was in prison for a while, but that like helped him with his biggest come up. However, that's so like grim, right? Like going from slavery, trying to do the right thing, rejecting your boss's wife's moves, and now you in prison for it. Like how bro tried to do everything the right way, and everything was twisted up on him, right? And I think what's crazy is what God always kept with him though throughout everything was his gift, right? To decipher dreams, right? So that helped him out in prison. I think we always end up when we're at our lowest point and we're like, yo, how did the world get us into this situation? We still have things that God, has given us, like as a present, right? That we can still rely on. The toughest times when I was having in Dallas, I still had podcasting. I still had coaching, right? I still like regardless of what was happening to me on the personal end or how I was feeling on that side, like I still was very gifted in that and I was able to excel in that, and that helped me along the way. So it's always things to think about. And this is not trying to be like just like what you were saying, like oh, you could get through everything, be a boss, right? Like even if traumatic shit gonna happen regardless, right? Like, but it's about it's almost like what we say in rowing, right? Like the rowing when you get tired and when you get, you know what I'm saying, like you're maxed out, the best thing is just go back to the fundamentals, right? Just keep what's going right, right. Like don't try anything new, don't try to be muscle man, right? Like just help keep the boat moving no matter what's going on with you. So
The
I
boat.
love rowing in that way, right? Like it's just a great analogy. So
Yeah, 100%. And then like I want to also talk about how this kind of leans into uh morals and why we hold them and why we apply them to our lives. And you were talking about doing the right thing and punished for it. Um, that kind of like it puts you in the situation where it's like, do I do the wrong thing to get out of this, or do I uphold my values and my morals no matter the cost, right? Because that's really on the true test of faith is if you're holding these morals no matter what, right? God doesn't control the people around you. He can only guide them, and everyone else has free will, and they will do whatever they want. If you want to validate, be validated by fellow men, that's not the same as being validated God. And I feel like for me, recently, I've just been thinking about how like it feels like at sometimes it's just me and God versus the world, right? Obviously, I know I got family on my side and friends and all that, but uh, what's stopping me from doing something below my morals, right? It's just me. It's just me. Um, my mom's not over here over my shoulder to tell me what to do, and it's just me. And there's always opportunities. We all know it. There's all opportunities to slip, and it could be something small. Maybe like I don't know, you find someone's wallet, and you could easily give it back with the $5 in it or without the $5 in it, right? So we get in situations like that, just money on the table, and no one's gonna know but you and God, right? What you do. So, and sometimes that
and do you think like in this story, like just in Joseph's story, like you think since he made the right move, like we don't know, like per se, right? But you think since he made the right move, was like able to give him like a nugget in jail, like like that opportunity, because like if he was to just get with the wife, like who knows, like he could have gotten killed. He could have, there's so many different things that could have gone down if he didn't do the right thing. And I guess just right off that moment, it seemed like a horrible moment because he got put in jail for it. But I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good, man. That's a good point to bring up, because it's like my first answer is to go just like, only God knows, right? Only God knows what's in front of us, and uh like what challenges he gives us. I think that I I mean I think God definitely rewards us for sticking with him and overall just holding morals, but at the same time we're not promised these benefits, right? It's again, it's the path that he wants us to go on, and we're not going to be able to understand it at all times, and we're not going to be able to see the reason for it at all times, but um, it's just, I feel like there's just test after test after test after test of where you will let your morals stand and where you will allow yourself to be influenced by either good or evil, right?
I hate to do this because I actually did this with Peter when we were talking earlier, but I always got to relate it to Batman. And the reason why I relate it to Batman is like Batman has every reason to be a villain, but he chooses not to, right? Like you got messed up, like your family got murdered, your family got slimed out, like in front of you, like it was a villain, like. And granted, like he does, like and Peter was saying this aspect too, is like he does give out like brute force punishment and stuff like that, like yeah, guaranteed, yeah, he does. However, you know what I'm saying? The way that he treats villains is he knows that that could have easily been him, right? Like so, like it's all about how you react in these stressful situations where emotion might override, where all these different things. Like, I bet you Joseph had every reason to be mad at the world because like his brothers got salty at him because his dad gave him like, a blessed that being a blessed coat. But just because the bro had a nice like little swag, they had to slime bro out. That's disrespectful. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I'll continue the Batman talk. Like, when I think about, well, first I'll say this. So, Batman's whole thing is that he has no superpowers, but he's still with them, right? He's still doing everything they can accomplish, right? He's still able to beat the villains and all that, and he's, no matter what happens his way, like ever since his parents died, he's always logged in, right? He's training, he's gathering research, and he's always prepared for everything, right? And I think that's kind of, I mean, it really is, because again, it's a fantasy. But if I were to like, and I'm talking like broad, general things here, but if I were to look at myself and for like a week or some given amount of time, I become the like best man or best person I could possibly be. And again, in broad terms, it would just be me working all day, right? Whether that's fitness, health, education, just whatever it is, I would be doing something, right? And one of my biggest weaknesses is not doing something, right? And so I'm talking about, what makes the best version of me, and what stops that is like simply distractions and listening to, oh, I don't feel good, oh, is it really worth it, right? And again, there's a lot of like day-to-day stuff, but I'll talk about working out. It's just I think I mean, really, anything we do in life we could talk about in this way, but I feel like working out is a very like straightforward and simple way of looking at it, where it's like, for a given amount of time, let's just call it a month, you have to work out 6 days a week, right? Every day that I don't wake up and work out, that's me failing, right? And I can again those, and what causes me to fail is simple thoughts of like, oh, I'm tired. Oh, it's okay. It's one day. Oh, this, that, the other. And I know in the back of my head, like I should do it. I should. It's easy, right? That's the easy part, is knowing what to do. But you just got to be able to get through all these things. And I'm over here talking about being too tired, being too lazy, while we're hearing these stories of someone being in prison for wrong for years and years and years, right? And that's not even his decision, right? I feel like I had something else, but actually, if you want to take it, I'll probably remember in a second.
No, but I think that actually is a really good idea, or a really good thought or concept that you were bringing up. Part of me thinks about like the opportunity God gave to Joseph to treat him. He could have treated his brothers like shit when they came to visit him for food, right? They had no idea it was him. He could have been like, yeah, you little peasants, y'all don't deserve shit. But he decided to test them to see, where their heart was at, if they were remorseful for what they did. I don't think a lot of people only the brothers and God do really what happened, right? So for him to have the grace that he did, and granted, time heals all wounds, so it's probably like so much time in between. But for all of that, right, there's a big moment, right? What they call it in freaking Spider-Man, the freaking, the
Oh,
fucking
canon event.
the canon event, right, was his brothers selling him out, and everything else happened based off of that, right? So for some reasons you'd say, oh, that was great, but there's still those years in prison. So for Joseph to just have the grace to show that, just overall, like, he's the cooler brother, the better brother, not just, not faulting those brothers, because they are changed men, but he could have easily been like, hell nah, I'm not even giving y'all nothing. He didn't even have to reveal himself, right? So but for him to have that grace, test his brothers, see where they were at, I think that was a pretty spot on, moment where he could have chosen, one thing, but decided to choose good.
Mhm. Yeah, because again, it's just like day to day, we're given decisions, and it is up to us, right? We make those decisions. God gave us free will, and we're able to exercise that, and we see it every day. We see people use it for good, evil, for themselves, for others. And I mean, like, again, like, this is all stuff I've been thinking about in the past couple of years, but it's like, wow, like, it is my decision, like, as obvious as that may be, it's like I can do whatever I want, right? And every time I make a misstep, it doesn't necessarily mean like I have to continue that. Doesn't mean I have to sit on it and call myself such a terrible person for doing that thing. All I get to do is just make the next decision, right? And that right there would be me making a decision to think about it. So again, more wasted time. That's really how I see it. It's just a waste of time is when you focus on past events. And I'm not saying I don't do it. I do it a lot. Um, and I'm sure a lot of people can agree with me with that. But it's those tiny decisions that you make day to day based off your emotions, based off your economic status, based off of what your friend's saying, based off whatever the heck. Like, you got to understand like how you're steering your life based off these decisions. And it's like you can be 100% like locked in, which nobody is, but if you were 100% locked in, did the everything right, then you be wherever the hell you want to be, right? So it's just our battle, our daily struggle to figure out what we want, and just trust that the perseverance to get it done will allow us to see results.
As funny as it may seem, I thought about it like this. Well, as you were speaking, in life, God is like the producer of a telltale game, right? So, like, you got those decisions, right? I'm not saying it's always going to be cut and paste. A lot of times it's a whole bunch of different decisions. And
Yeah.
you might go down this one path and it's like, okay, I wasted all my time going down this one path where if I would have done this path, if I'd have done this, life would have been a lot simpler, a lot easier. And I think a lot of times God gives us opportunity to learn in a valley, which I'd say Joseph's like whole arc is a valley, which granted he didn't decide whether or not, he was going to be there, right? His brothers did for the most part. But for the most part, I think that, and I don't mean to keep saying for the most part, God legitimately gives you these choices and you decide what you're going to do with it. And then if you go into a loop that like is a 10-year loop, I mean, for some people got like 10-year loops of like recovery of like, abusing drugs and alcohol, like, and they get out of that, right? Like it takes that time, but then you come back. And at least for my life, and I can't speak on yours, only you can, but I feel like God brings back these moments where it's like, okay, like what's your decision now? Where are you at now? And I see it so much in coaching. It's easier to see it in like coaching because you're doing the exact same thing. You might be different places, but like you got those scenarios, but I see it just in life in general. It's like, damn, like I chose to freak out, cry, right? Call my dad, make a whole muck about this small ass situation. Cost me, in the grand scheme of things, may have cost me 2-3 weeks from all that fucking shit. But if this shit happens now, this is nothing. I've been through this. This is easy. So there's some worth in going through that. Because then when you get through it, when you have it again, then you know what's happening. But it's so cool when those moments happen.
I completely see what you're saying. Yeah. Like life is so unpredictable. But at the same time, like it's so repetitive, right? Like for most people, we're doing the same things every day for a good long period of time, and we get into habits and all that. So it can feel like the same thing, and that's what I feel like a lot of people are, criticizing, like current life is just the same repetitive schedule and work, blah blah blah. But we're not here to talk about that. But yeah, like I've seen moments happen again so many times, and I'll first talk about coaching because that's again a real nice and simple way to look at it because it's the same thing every year, right? We have a goal to win races, to get faster, and how do we do that? We practice 6 days a week, and there's a board for my club in particular. There's a board. There are coaches. There are athletes. There are parents, right? And certain events are going to happen, and they're going to be caused by the same situation. If you catch what I'm saying, but what I'm getting at is an event will happen that happened poorly, and I wasn't too happy about it happening. And then I'll think back, I'm like, you know what? I saw signs of that, right? I saw signs of this event about to happen, and that sign at the moment wasn't alarming to me, and I didn't see any reason to, intervene. But now after experiencing that, it's like now I can recognize certain patterns now. And I start to learn, like, why our parents growing up knew everything that was happening, right? It's because, they've been through it day, again over years. And I'm enamored by the things I picked up in 3 years, right? So, I'm big on like just taking events and learning lessons from it because it's going to happen again. And then there's events that I'm waiting to make the right decision on. Like you said, like they come back. There's things that it's bad to have regrets and all, but I regret a couple things, and I'm like, dang, I wish I could like have that situation so I could right my wrong, And will that happen? That's for God to decide, right? Maybe I don't need to learn that lesson. I've already learned it, right? the outcome wasn't what I wanted, but what I have here is what I needed. So yeah, I really like that point about certain events coming back because it happens all the time. History repeats itself.
Yeah, and the way I call it, like matrix coding, if that makes sense. Like it's a matrix code that just comes into the game. Like we think about this, we play a lot of the video games. You know, one of my favorite games is Hitman. Everybody got the same pattern, right? So like it might be a different map, it might be everything different, but like same shit be happening, right? Like, you know, niggas not paying attention over there, you know, people doing their own thing here, one dude walking in the loop. I'm not saying that that's always happening, but in terms of life, like there's gonna be a tragedy here. It's gonna be similar to a tragedy, you know what I'm saying, over there, right? Like it's just so similar. Like oh, like this is just part of like life. Like everybody has these moments. You might not have the exact same moment, but you got something remotely like close. You got something that you could like. If you heard news today about a homie, right, like about a homeboy, you can instantly be like, damn, that can relate to me in some ways. I've had some type of experience, or maybe you haven't had that experience yet, and it's gonna happen. Like, you know, one of the big things is like, you know, death, passing away. That's gonna happen regardless in your family. Luckily, I've met some people who have never had that in their close family, and you know, praise, you know, be to God. But you know, at some point, that's gonna happen, right? But I've met people like, you know, especially on my end, it's just like I've had family members fall left and right, and how you gonna react to that? So, just interesting idea of that, like, you know, these situations come up, and then how are you going to answer? And dude, I'm thirsty for some moments to come back where I can redeem myself. And then God's just like, you know what, chill out, bro.
Yeah,
Like you
yeah,
already either you already learned it, or like, you know, you tripping on this one, so hold tight, you know what I'm saying? And that's the patience, and that's on God's time. And I think overall, though, from the story of Joseph, and this is what I take from it, and you can take what your overall take from it is, you got to trust God's timing. Things may look rough at a certain period of time. That doesn't mean that it's gonna always be like that. Um, Watch out on, like, you know, who you talking to, right? Like, you know, he talked to the baker and the cupbearer. You know, they ended up coming through at the long run, but for the most part, at first, bro was like, damn, you had me in the. I think it was like up to a year where he was still in prison, and bro didn't do nothing about it, right? It wasn't until the Pharaoh had a dream that bro was like, oh yeah, Joseph. But we got moments like that in life where, you know, hey, hit me up with the plug me, bro. And then it's not until, you know, they get another, I don't know, something that alerts them to be like, oh, damn, I remember with Corey, I remember with X, blah, blah, blah. So for the most part, it's just trusting God's time and understanding that in whatever situation you're in currently, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're stuck there. And that if you can rely on the gifts that God is giving you, then you have a chance to really, you know, show out for him, right? There's a time and a place for redemption, and it doesn't happen instantly. It happens with the turmoil, so that you could talk about the turmoil. You could be like, yo, I was in the shit. What would you do? You know? And then you rise out of that and you see, you know, oh, you know, Corey's doing this, X doing this, blah, 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 blah. So that's the key takeaways that I got from it. And, you know, Corey, you do your thing on that.
yeah. I mean, I'm probably gonna be a little shorter than you, but like the big thing I got from it is perseverance. And just, you know, like you said, trusting in the path that you're taking. Um, and like I just think about, you know, as an individual, just being like, and I'm just talking about even like now, like for me, it's just like not everything makes sense, right? And some things that I'm doing, I'm not necessarily like, yeah, this is exactly what I need to be doing, but you know, I still do it, and sometimes I get fruits out of my labor, sometimes I don't, sometimes I get lessons out of my labor, right? But I just always have this trust in that it's all for a purpose. I'm doing this for a reason. Um, and yeah, perseverance, man. Patience is strength, and I'm sure we'll all be rewarded for it.
Yeah, and here's a part where Christianity comes into play, right? Like if in the world you aren't rewarded, it's because the world's evil. It's inherently evil, right? Like it's set up for the enemy to succeed,
Yeah, you should
right?
not
So
want the world to reward you for being a follower of God, right?
Exactly. It's not until, the day that you're no longer here, if you got a right relationship with the Lord, right? You know that he's king, then you get to see the fruit of your labors. Then you get to understand, what this whole thing was about. And is that a hard concept to grasp and just in general? Because you live in life right now. Hell yeah. That's the hardest part to grasp. But that doesn't mean that the Lord won't bless you here on earth. Um, to help you, bless others. That's the main thing. God will give you the resources as long as you are there to bless others with the resources that he gives to you. Right.
And real
So
quick, that's not to say that the the world isn't like a beautiful gift, and that if you work towards goals in this realm that you won't get stuff out of it. We're just saying that it's it's the only thing that's promised is God, is your faith in God, right? So
yeah, without a doubt. So, and the Lord's gonna bless you, when you see it. And it might not be the way that you want it. That's the thing. Things aren't gonna make sense. It's not gonna be the way you want it at times. Maybe it'll be exactly the way you want it. You're like, oh my gosh, I got a life story, I got a dream story, right? But not everything's Disney. Okay. Not everything is Disney. But I'm so grateful that we were able to watch this, even if it was just 7 minutes. But everybody, we're so thankful for having you guys along the way. Grateful for, Corey. Corey, you got anything you want to say to the people just on this clip, and then we'll call it a day.
all I want to say is it's really I really like just sitting and like really just diving deep into deconstructing these stories and just finding meaning out of it, whether it's from your point of view or the Bible's point of view. I feel like just the fact that you just can read it, sit on it, and then express yourself about it is more than enough of its purpose. So all I'm saying is really really appreciate it.
Yeah, all good, all good. Hey, but everybody, let us know what your thoughts are on the story of Joseph. If you have any comments or questions about it, or if you even have your own reflections on it, please comment down below. We really do appreciate your time. Thank you for watching What's Out. Peace out, everybody.
Peace out.